Hello and welcome to IAFA Insider. We're not going to go with our usual me spitballing jokes this week, given we're recording this on Monday evening and the incidents in Boston. Of course, our sympathies, and I'm sure I speak for the entire IAFA, go out to everybody in Boston at this moment. This week we're going to talk to David Barker of Trinity about their colours win over UCD, and Barry Bolton of the West Dublin Rhinos about their win over the Dublin Rebels. And joining me now is David Barker of Trinity College Dublin. David's a linebacker with Trinity. So naturally, our first question for you, David, thanks for joining us on the show, is defensively, 21-0, great performance. What did you guys do against UCD to pitch a shutout?
Thanks, yeah, it was a good win for us. I think we worked a lot during the week at trying to install some blitz packages into our defense. We sort of, I think we probably lacked that the week before against UL, so we wanted to be able to sort of affect the opposition a bit more this week by being able to pressure them and pressure what they did. So, and we were sort of, we were wondering, when would be the most opportune time to sort of introduce some blitzes and some pressure. And I think just before the game, the wind was just insane on the day, and we knew that in the quarters they were going against the wind, we knew it would be hard for them to pass. We knew that it'd be better for us to sort of pressure them then. So I think we focus on that a lot, and also, just knowing UCD, they're going to be, as fast and athletic and as fit a team as you're going to find in the IFL, given that they're going to be young like ourselves. And, a huge priority for us was just going to be keeping contained, keeping our assignments, keeping our gaps, not letting them get outside, and just sort of keeping them inside where the bulk of our defenders were. I think, that was probably our main priority. We knew we had to do that.
And I suppose as a player, David, because obviously, like you were saying, it was windy, the elements affect games. Anyone's watching any matches on TV in any sport of the weekend would have saw what the wind was like in Dublin. When you're on the field, are you thinking that they aren't going to be able to throw it the same way, expect a run? Are the coaches relaying orders to you?
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where the wind was just, it was so huge that we just knew that unless you just plan to completely abandon the pass, we knew teams still had to pass. And it got to the point where it was almost, in the past game, it was almost just a lottery. And we have to rely on sort of as a defender, you have to rely on your other defenders to help you out and make pass and ball calls to let when the ball's in the air. But I could tell, looking at our cornerbacks and safeties and looking at their receivers, I think the ball was going in one direction, but it was landing somewhere completely different. The wind would just take every single ball, and I don't think there was many passes caught over about 10 yards. It affected the game hugely, and it probably meant that both teams sort of had to become slightly one-dimensional in the way they approached the game.
And so from an offense perspective, now I obviously wasn't at the game, were there 3 straight offensive touchdowns or special teams involved?
No, it was two offensive touchdowns to start the game. We got off to a very early start. And it was probably to do with the win, to be honest. The special teams, we got a great kick down the field. We sort of kept the trajectory very low and wanted it to hit off the ground and sort of put the UCD guys under pressure. And the wind took it a bit, and it ended up hitting off one of the UCD returners, and he couldn't catch it first time. So we ended up being able to pin them back very deep inside their territory very early. And we were able to keep them on 3 and out then, because they were going against the wind, obviously, and couldn't really pass out of that. And when we got the ball, I think it was a turnover and downs, because I don't think they wanted to punt into that wind. And we ended up getting a very early touchdown. I think we need to run about 10, 20 yards into the end zone over a couple of plays, and definitely pinning them back early. And we chose not to receive the ball, and normally we'd obviously always say opt to receive the ball, but that was huge, definitely, us pinning them back. And we scored those 2 touchdowns early, and it wasn't until, I think, one of the last plays of the game, the fourth quarter, that we got the third one. So it was a very tight game for most of it.
And I suppose then, looking at sort of the season ahead for you guys, because obviously it's a crowded schedule like everybody's schedule, no one's kind of coming off easy in this. But of course, you will be one of the more college-heavy teams. So in terms of the pressure then, because I see you got another game next week coming, you've got 2 in May, which my understanding is for the peak exam period. And of course, you've got the one in June, which will be just after the exams are done. For you guys, is it hard to keep the focus when you've got so many students?
Yeah, it is and it isn't. I mean, there's a point where, with the weather, it was it was a hard start for us, because it was so touch and go, and we had a lot of our games cancelled, and obviously that means that, as you're saying, the bulk of our games are coming in quick succession, and obviously leaking over into the exam period. But at the same time, it is good sometimes in that you get to sort of build some form and build some momentum. And aside from the physical toll, I think we don't mind playing a couple of games in quick succession and week after week, because it does allow us to sort of get our heads up and start putting together some form. But hopefully, we need to start coming out with wins now. We need to start getting a lot of training sessions in now and start playing well, because coming up to the exam break, we're not, football's just not going to be our top priority. It's not going to be what we're going to be able to focus on, and that's always hard for us. And I think even games sort of that come just after the exam schedule is the hard part.
Will it help as well? You only have to. Will it help that you only have to leave Dublin once more this season? Because I see you've got UL and Cork at home. You're in UCD for a game, which obviously for a lot of your guys, I'm guessing, will be actually easier to get to than your own home ground. It's in Belfield.
True, yeah.
Then you finish off at Cork. So like one of your games in the exam period is at UCD. I suppose is it kind of I suppose fortunate scheduling wise that you're playing another college team then, because they'll have the same issues as you guys will have.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the schedule, it wasn't. Yeah, and it wasn't great for us looking at playing UL twice away, in two of our first three games. But like you're saying, it's great to get them out of the way so that we're in Dublin for the bulk of our exam schedule, and we can start settling in at Santry and have a lot of games there. And again, like you said, playing in UCD is closer to most guys than Santry is. So hopefully, if we can take some good form and we can get a lot of training sessions in, hopefully we'll be able to travel down to Cork, not too worse for wear, with injuries and in terms of, focus, because obviously the exams just take over hugely in terms of, what team focus is.
Absolutely. Well, David, that's all we got time for with this interview. Thanks a lot for joining us, and congratulations again on your win.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Barry Bolton from the West Dublin Rhinos, who recorded a narrow 7-6 win over the Dublin Rebels. And joining me now on the line, fresh off a 7-6 victory on Sunday, it's Barry Bolton from the West Dublin Rhinos. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Emmet.
Well, Barry, you play both sides of the ball, so we're going to start off on the defensive side, because you guys conceded a touchdown early, but you've really held out the Rebels for the rest of the game. How did the game break down for you guys from a defensive perspective?
Yeah, it was quite similar to the first game of the season when we played them. They came out running the ball. Now, yesterday was a very windy day, which limited both teams when it came to passing the ball, so a lot of it was on the ground. It was a very quick game as well, because the clock kept going. So when the Rebels, they started running the ball early on in the game, they had some success and they scored on their opening drive. Running back Simon Mackey ran for about 20 yards and scored a touchdown against us. And similar enough to the first time we played them, we were just a bit slow off the mark when the game started, and a couple of missed tackles resulted in a few big gains for them, and we just had to fight back from that. But once that score went in, everyone kind of stepped up and started making the tackles that they were missing in the first quarter, and from there we stopped them scoring. We shut them out for the rest of the game.
And the conditions affect the type of offense the Rebels ran. Was there a greater focus on the run than usual?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that in the past they've had some success against us in the air. Even earlier in the season they completed a couple of passes against us, whereas I can't remember if they completed any passes against us on Sunday just gone. So it was mostly the running game, and like I say, if you can slow that down, then you're really putting the offense in just one dimension, and it's easier to defend once you're getting the run and not the pass. So for the defense, the mentality was stop the run and let the wind take care of the passing game, because it was the best defender we had out there.
And so obviously the Rebels scored that touchdown in the first quarter, went for two, didn't get it. So then you guys go up the field in the second quarter, score a touchdown. Just describe that drive to us.
Yeah, it was a great drive. Actually, it's the best drive we've had all season. Obviously, those are the first points we scored this season as well, so it's not hard to be the best drive. But we started back on our own 15 or 20 yard line, and we drove down the pitch. Now, we had a little bit of help from one or two false start penalties from the Rebels, which extended the drive for us and made things just that little bit easier.
Offsides when it's defense, come on now.
Yeah. Well, the defensive offsides, I play both sides of the ball, I get confused easily. So that helped. We had a different quarterback on Sunday. Johnny Norcott had his first start at quarterback, and he moved the chains a few times on the ground before capping the drive with I think it was a 22-yard touchdown pass to one of our wide receivers, Alex. and everything just seemed to go to plan on the drive. There was we fumbled the ball at one stage. It was my mistake. I snapped it too early, and we fumbled it, but we recovered it. But it was the next play that we scored the touchdown, so I suppose it wasn't too bad.
Now, obviously you're centre. Are you also the long snapper, are you?
I am, yeah. And
so the decision to go for the extra point, obviously, was to give you guys the lead, but was that a tough call given the conditions?
Well, in the second quarter we had the winds at our back, so we had that on our side. It's still, the wind was that strong that the likes of the long snap could have been affected from it, but we'd be a good team for practicing our special teams. Our coaches really kind of dedicated to special teams, so we'd practice that a lot, and we'd be more kind of prepared for special teams than other teams would be, I think. So it was an easy decision once we scored to go for one. It's our go-to. We never really go for two unless we absolutely have to. So I think it was a quick decision for Mark, the head coach, to call for the 1 point.
And obviously there were no other scores in the rest of the game. So just describe to us sort of the way it broke down field position-wise. Was there ever any real chance that someone looked like they were going to score, or anyone in serious scoring position, or was it largely sort of affected by the conditions, or by the defenses rather?
If I'm completely honest, the Rebels were threatening to score more than we were after we scored our first touchdown. When it came to it, I think the Rebels had two opportunities from our goal line that our defense kind of stepped up and shut them out. I mean, late in the fourth quarter, as time expired, the Rebels completed it. Well, the rest called it complete, but it was actually incomplete onto the 1 yard line. When they corrected it, the time had expired in that play, so they came fairly close to scoring on the final play of the game. And even on the run up to that, they were driving the ball down the field and getting closer and closer to the end zone, but they couldn't put it in. And in the third quarter, we had another goal line stop where the Rebels went for it on fourth down and couldn't convert. So we played out of our end zone once or twice on offense, and in the fourth quarter, we got the ball back on, I think, the 3 or 4 yard line after a fourth down stop that the Rebels went for it. And we had to punt out of our own end zone as well, and given the wind and the conditions, we were punting into the wind from our own end zone. It wasn't ideal, but we managed to keep the Rebels under pressure and keep them out of the end zone.
And so finally, Barry, because I know you've played around in a couple of teams before. You settled on the Rhinos a few years back when I was still playing, so it is quite a few years back.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, anyone thinks Barry jumps around. A lot of my former teammates with the Saints play with you, and I know from your experience, from their experience, and from obviously anyone who's in the Rhinos' experience, you've never beaten the Rebels before, and they always were really sort of, especially for a Dublin club, the standard bearer. So, for you guys, when it ended, how emotional was the occasion?
It was huge for us. I mean, like you say, I've been playing for about 9 or 10 years now, and we've a couple of guys in the team who've been playing longer. And between all of us, none of us had ever beaten the Rebels before. So to actually get one up on them, even just by 1 point, which is all that was in it, was huge for us. And it was the first win of our season as well, which is even, it was just as big to get that win and break the kind of duck we've been having this season. So to get that win was huge. I mean, the celebrations that were going on our sideline after the game, you'd swear we made it to the Shamrock Bowl or won the Shamrock Bowl, but we needed that to jumpstart our season. So we've still got our eyes on the playoffs now because of that win. We can really give us something to fight for and cling on to now.
Well, Barry, thanks a lot for joining us this evening.
No problem, Emma. Thanks for having me again.
That was Barry Bolton. I'd like to thank Barry and David for joining me on the show this week. Before we go, we're just going to run through the results from last weekend in both conferences and the fixtures for next week. First of all, with the Shamrock Bowl Conference. Dublin Rebels 6, West Dublin Rhinos 7, Craigavon Cowboys 7, Belfast Trojans 52, University College Dublin 0, Trinity College Dublin 21. And the fixtures for the week ahead: University College Dublin at Cork Admirals, that's in CIT at 2 p.m. Carrickfergus Knights at Belfast Trojans, that's at Shorts SNR Club at 2 p.m. And UL Vikings at Trinity College Dublin, that's at Trinity College Sports Grounds at 2 p.m. In IAFL 1, there was one game played at the weekend: the Mullingar Minotaurs 6, Drogheda Lightning 20. There is one game in this coming week: Tullamore Phoenix visit the North Kildare Reapers, that's in North Kildare RFC at 2 p.m. We hope to join you with a much better tone, I suppose, one way of putting it, for our next episode. Thank you for listening.